As we progress through Outlook, it occurs to me that we're missing one critical element. We can send and receive email. We can plan time and meetings, but the missing element is, who are we communicating and meeting with? The answer, of course, is people. Could be family, friends, coworkers, customers, or vendors, but it's always about people. If we use Exchange, we might have all of those as part of our organization and available in the global address book. But even if that is true, not to mention if we don't use Exchange, we need another place, and that place is Outlook Contacts. As we've learned with messaging and calendar, we can use contacts at a very simple level, or we can take full advantage of the many features that Outlook provides. That allows us to keep very detailed information for those with whom we interact, work, and communicate. In this chapter, we'll take those skills that we're now very comfortable with in Outlook and apply them to creating, modifying, and managing contact information. We can do so for individuals as well as groups of people. We can even use the new People pane and Social Connector to keep up with those from online environments. Really, Outlook can be the key to keeping connected with the people in our life regardless of where they come from. In this chapter, we'll go ahead and explore all the wonderful things that you can do to keep track of the people in your life using Outlook. When we work with a non-Exchange account, or if we want to keep our own personal contacts not included in a global address list, we need to create our own contact records. The basic steps are exactly the same as email and calendars, only the fields have changed. What is new to Outlook 2010, well, at least one of the many new things that's new, especially one of the many new things to contacts, is something called suggested contacts. This feature keeps track of anyone we send messages to that's not in our global address list or our contact list, and puts them into its own folder. So if we need to find or reference them later, we can. In fact, the Suggested Contacts folder is available from the Select Contacts box, just like our global address list and our contacts folder are. Some say this is also like autocomplete, where when we start typing an email, it goes ahead and gives us a little tooltip if we sent it to that person before. But there are differences. Unlike autocomplete, Suggested Contacts is searchable, and it can have an unlimited number of entries, whereas autocomplete can only contain a maximum of 1,000 entries. So we can use this new feature when we compose messages, but if we want to view or modify these entries, we can access them from the navigation pane in the Contacts view as its own folder. When you come into Contacts in the navigation pane, you may see more than one folder, especially if you have multiple emails as part of this particular Outlook profile. In this case, we have a contact list for Michael's main account, as well as one for Suggested Contacts. When we click Suggested Contacts, we can see that he sent an email message to blake@contoso.com, who is evidently not in any of his other address lists. My guess is you can probably already see that one of the issues that this has is that this list is probably going to grow and grow and grow as we send more and more email. So we might want to come in and clean it out every once in a while. If we don't want to show this folder as an address book for things like email, we can disable it by opening the folder's properties and turning it off on the Outlook Address Book tab. But sometimes cleaning the list out means we want to convert an entry that's currently in this list to a real contact. This can be done by using any one of the Move tools, but normally I find it much easier just to use drag and drop to the Contacts folder. And that's what I think I'll do with Blake's entry. I'm simply going to press and hold my left mouse button, and I'm going to drag it right up on top of the normal Contacts folder and let it go. Now if I go to Contacts, I can see that Blake has been entered. Now because this was entered automatically, there's not a lot of information. There's no alias and no other information. So we probably want to double click. And this is where we first get to see what a full contact record looks like. I'm going to go ahead and maximize the window so that we can see everything. Most of the fields here are pretty self-explanatory, and by now you are well used to filling out forms in Outlook. You've done email forms, you've done meeting forms, you've done appointment forms, and more. But I do want to give you a little insight into a few of them. For example, if you have anything that looks like a button, like full name, that means that if you do not complete it correctly, a window is going to come up, or you can click on it to begin with to show the window. In the case of full name, what it's showing us is that if we typed in a full name, it would try to guess what the first name and last name should be. If it gets confused, this window would display. It gives us the option to be as specific as designating a title, first, middle, last, and suffix. You also can turn this window off if you don't like it coming up every time you put in a name. The question is, why do we care? Isn't full name good enough? And the answer is, it could be, but it may not. Remember that Outlook is a database, and because it's a database, it can be used for things like mail merge. If we're going to use a mail merge off of our Outlook contacts, we need to be able to differentiate between a person's first name and a last name. So when we say something like, put in Dear and then their first name, it knows which name to use. It's really that simple. If you don't ever see the box, it means that Outlook probably figured it out on its own. A couple of other things are likewise important. We also need to know how to file something. So currently this was created just because we sent an email, and we can see that there is no name, only the email information down below. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of information so we have something to work with. This actually is Blake Humphreys. Once we get that information in, we could put any variety of other pieces of information as well, like the company, and his job title. Once we get those in, that's when this file as becomes really useful. File as is exactly what it sounds like. This is how we will look up the information, kind of like what you would write on the tab of a Rolodex card or of a file folder. Do you want it by his last name, by his first name, by his company, or some combination thereof? It really doesn't matter exactly what you pick, just be consistent so that you know how to find the stuff that you're looking for. I'm going to choose last name, then the first name, with the company name after it. Anytime you see a drop-down arrow next to a field, that means that Outlook can store more than one value for that field. In this case, we can store up to 3 emails. The important thing is to always have the primary email as their first email address. That's the one that Outlook is going to default to. You can always choose one of the alternates by clicking on To or the meeting request or any of those other things that we've seen that allow us to address a message, but this one will become the default. The display as is actually also an alias. If I leave it this way, anytime a message is received from Blake as an example, it's going to say Blake, Humphreys, and then his full email address. That may be too long and cumbersome. Maybe I just need to know Blake. Maybe I need to know Blake from Contoso. You can type in whatever you need here. For example, with my mom's email address, her alias is just Mom. When I want to address a message to her, I don't have to type in her full email, I just type Mom, which is a lot shorter. Also, when I receive things from her, it says from Mom instead of from her email address. I think you get the idea. The alias is something that is displayed instead of their full email address and name information if that's something that you desire to do. Otherwise, the default is just fine. We'll move on down through web page addresses and instant messaging addresses. We'll see that we can store several different business phone numbers. And what I want to point out here is that even though we're only able to view 4 phone numbers at a time, you actually could store every one of these. So we could fill in every possible phone number, but the ones that we have selected here are the ones that are going to show up for the contact records. Likewise, we also have up to 3 different addresses we can have, and we should mark one as the mailing address, again in case we want to do things like mail merges. On the right-hand side, we have a place for notes, and this can be anything at all that you want to type in. You have quite a bit of space where you can type in anything that you would like to keep about this person. Don't overlook this little shadowy figure though. A couple of versions ago, we were given the ability to add pictures. Now I don't have a picture of Blake, but I'm going to go ahead and click here anyway. When I do, it brings up the same dialog that we see when we use Insert Picture from any of our Office applications. I'm just going to select a sample picture. Normally this would be a picture of the person's face. Why do we care about this? Well, there's actually a couple of reasons why I think this is a good idea. This helps us feel connected to people with whom we communicate, because these days we may never actually meet these people. I do a lot of virtual work, and I've asked everybody that I know to go ahead and send me a snapshot. Doesn't have to be a great picture, doesn't have to be formal, but that way when I start to send and receive email, I get to see their picture along with it. I also have medical background, and I know that one of the biggest mistakes that you can ever make in medicine are medication errors because you accidentally gave the wrong Susan Smith the medicine. So it helps prevent mistaken identity or communications by showing you a picture of the person whenever you use that person's information or send and receive information. Outlook 2010 uses this image to display it next to the communications to help us identify to whom or from whom a message is, which is really very nice. That's what we'll go ahead and call the basic information, and for most people that is more than enough. But if it's not, from the Show group up on the ribbon, we can choose Details. And on this screen, you can fill in any variety of information like a person's department, where their office is, what their location is, their manager's and assistant's name, even their spouse or partner, their birthdays and their anniversaries. If you add birthdays and anniversaries, those actually get added to your calendar. So if you're into good customer service and you can collect this information, you can be at the top of your game by letting Outlook help you remember things like anniversaries, birthdays, spouses, managers, assistants, and all of that makes it look like you're really on top of who it is you're talking to and remembering their details. Some people choose to use Details. Others are just going to stick with the General tab. It can be really helpful now that Outlook tracks people that we send messages to, since hopefully they won't be a one-time thing. Repeat business and ongoing relationships are an important part of our social fabric. When we want to keep people's contact information with more details, we can use a contact record to do so with any level of detail that we find necessary. And Outlook 2010 updated this ability by adding helpful features like instant messaging address, pictures, in addition to the more typical fields that we'd expect. It's all simply part of the contact record, and all you have to do is fill out the information that's important to you.